In this video, we will create this altered journal using wrapping paper. This is one of the altered composition books that we created in our in-person workshops held at the Dallas Public Libraries. If you didn't pick up one of our paper kits at our studio at the Mix Creative Space, I'll be showing you how to create this journal with supplies that you might already have at home. Many of the supplies I will show you today I purchased at the dollar store or Walmart. Let's take a look at our supplies that we're going to use for today's project. Composition book, some coordinating wrapping paper, some tissue paper, sponge brushes, Mod Podge, and it's always good to have a ruler, scissors, and a pencil handy, and wax paper for keeping the insides of your book pages clean. I'm going to show you what I like doing with freezer paper. Most of these supplies I purchased at Dollar Tree. So let's get started on the project. At the in-person workshops that were held at the Dallas Public Libraries, Linda made sumagashi papers for the end sheets. If you're at home, I'm going to show you how to make the end papers out of tissue paper and freezer paper. Here's a sheet of the tissue paper, and I have a piece of freezer paper. If you notice, the freezer paper has a shiny side and it has a matte side. I'm going to iron this tissue paper onto the shiny side of the freezer paper. I'll be right back. Okay, I ironed the tissue paper onto the freezer paper. Remember, it goes on the shiny side, and you should see the matte side when you finish. Some of the tips to doing that: I make sure that I have no steam on my iron, and I set it at a wool or linen setting, and just iron it on the front, and then I turn it over and I iron it on the back as well. You may want to put some parchment paper or another piece of tissue paper on top to protect your iron, just in case some of that plastic from the freezer paper seeps through. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the extra tissue paper now. Now I'm going to take that and fold it in half. I'm going to take my composition book and place this all the way in. And take my pencil and trace around the composition book. I'll go ahead and cut that out now. And I'm going to open that up and just cut along the fold line. Okay, so now I have the two end sheets for my journal, and they fit right in there. Let me set that aside. So I took the wrapping paper and I cut out two sheets of each color. They're the size of a sheet of paper. So what I'm going to do is just going to cut straight down the middle. And I'm going to cut these into smaller pieces for the collage. And I'm just going to keep cutting in half. Getting me different sizes to work with my collage. See, I think I'm going to cut a straight edge there. Clean that up a little bit. Okay. Make some skinny strips. Not so skinny strips. I'm going to cut this one in thirds. And you can cut them however you like. I'm just trying to get them into smaller pieces. Okay, I'm going to cut that ragged edge off. Okay, clean that up. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to use the wax paper, and I'm going to protect my journal from the pages inside because I'm going to be putting glue here. All right, so let's take a look. So what I usually do, just to make it easier for myself, I sort of find the middle of the book, and I open it up and flatten it out on my work surface. This is where I use the wax paper. I put it up underneath that cover, and then I'll get another piece and put it up here on the other side. Now, if you like, I use masking tape to hold mine in place. And I just put a little bit down here. And I'll also put a little bit up here just to keep the wax paper in place. I'm going to take all those pieces that I cut up. I'm just going to mix them up. Now, when you get started on your composition book, one of the things that you want to keep in mind is that you want your paper to come over at least an inch, because you're going to take that and you're going to wrap it back once we finish collaging it on the covers. Okay, so I'm just going to start putting paper down just to see what I'm working with. And in collage, you just sort of want to put things in place, layer it. Just sort of get an idea of how you want things to go. So I think for this process, I'm going to start with my largest pieces. And just sort of outline the book. Remembering to give myself at least an inch off the edge. So I want an inch off the edge of this space, an inch off the edge there. Okay, I think I have a good idea of how I'm going to proceed. My glue brush, the little sponge brush, I'm going to start putting some glue down. And I'm going to start with my corners first. So I'm going to take my large piece, make sure I have some overhang both at the top and on the sides. I'm going to do the same for the corners. Make sure I get all my corners together. I'm using Mod Podge because I'm going to take the Mod Podge and I'm going to seal it once I get everything in place. Okay, I'm leaving an inch, at least an inch here and an inch on the sides. Doesn't matter if you get glue on there because I'm going to put Mod Podge over everything once I'm done. I'm going to take care of this edge here so I can see where that meets there. Remember to give yourself an inch overhang at the top. Okay. Make sure you get glue, plenty of glue to adhere it down. Okay. I think I'm going to add a blue here. I found this scraper at the Dollar Tree, which I'm going to use here and give it a try. But you can always use a gift card or a key card that you're no longer using. And what I'm going to do is, as I put these pieces down, I'm just going to brayer them in place so they make good contact with the composition book. So I am going to speed this part up because it may take me a minute to get all my pieces in the right place. So I'm going to speed up the rest of this process because it may take me some time to figure out where I want everything. And you take your time too as well when you're creating your composition book. Okay, so as you see, I finished putting paper, the wrapping paper down, collaging one side of the book. So I'm going to take my Mod Podge and give it an extra coat. I don't know if you noticed, but I used my sponge brush to adhere everything down to the composition book. I'm checking for corners that are lifting. And just spreading that Mod Podge all over. And that'll help seal down all the edges. At the workshop, we use glue sticks. But while you're at home, feel free to use a white glue, Elmer's glue. I like Mod Podge because it just sort of helps with all your edges and gives it a nice finish as well. I'm going to continue on with the second part, this back cover. Now remember, as you're putting this down, give yourself about an inch overhang over the edges of your composition book. Okay, sorry about that. My battery gave way. But as you see, I finished collaging the back of the book. And I'm adding a coat of Mod Podge to the book. All right, I'm going to leave that to dry, and we'll be back to finish it once that's dry. So in our in-person workshops, we did use hair dryers, but since I'm working at this at my own pace, I'm going to let it dry naturally and come back. So our project feels dry to the touch. I'm going to go ahead and start working on the insides. Turn it over, and I'm going to put this wax paper on the bottom because I'm going to begin turning these edges over. One of the things that I do with my sponge brushes is that I'll wrap them up in some plastic. It keeps them from drying out in between while I'm waiting for things to dry. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work on this corner, the corners first. I'm going to put some glue up there. And then I'm going to fold this back, making a triangle at the corner. Now I'm going to make sure that's pretty tight up against the edge of the book. Make that triangle. I'm going to come down here and do this corner. Do the same thing. Fold that in. Make a triangle. Now I'm going to put glue on this whole edge here. And fold that in. Make sure I get it tied up against the composition book, the edge, so I can get a nice, neat edge. Do the same for the top up here. I'll glue the bottom as well. I'm not too worried about little corners that are lifting, but I'm going to glue them down just by habit pretty much. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take these end papers and we're going to cover that up, which I'm going to do right now while I have this open. So I'm going to put some glue down and spread it from the inside seam, and then I'm going to spread it out. Make sure I'm getting good coverage. You don't have to go too thick because the end paper that we're working with doesn't need a lot of glue to adhere it. You could even use a glue stick for this part of the process. Okay, I think I have good coverage. I'm going to put this up in the edge, up in the seam of the book. See if my edges match up. I need to adjust that. Okay, that looks good. One of the things I'm noticing is that one of my edges are a little bit longer, but I'll come back and I'll fix that. I'm going to go ahead and rub that down so we have good adhesion. Check for any lifting. I need to add some more glue. This is where you may want to have some sanitizing wipes or a wet rag so you can keep your fingertips free of some glue. And then sometimes I use it just to mop up any extra glue that I might see around. So see how nice and clean that edge is from where we wrap the wrapping paper over. And we're off to a good start. I'm going to go ahead and do the back cover. Okay, so I've got the front and back cover done. I'm going to go ahead and check. Some of my end sheets came over just a little bit on the edge. So the way that I handle that is that I take it and I curl that page down just to remove it away from the cover area. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim that. Just curl it back so that I don't catch my book front cover, my covers of the book. Okay, there we go. I'm going to do the same to the back because I saw a little edge showing from the cover. So again, I'm going to just roll that down a little bit, take my scissors and come through there and trim. Okay. I go back in and I check for any lifting areas. Put a little glue. Make sure I get all my little corners. All right. Okay, we just completed our collage altered composition book with the end papers made from tissue paper and freezer paper. I hope you enjoyed making this composition book with me out of wrapping papers. So now it gives you an idea of what you might could do with some of your extra wrapping paper that you have laying around the house. Check our playlist for other journals that we've created and come play along with us. See you next time.